Hello, I'm Shyboy616. Merry Christmas. We finally made it to that time of the year, and I just wanted to share a little something with y'all. So ever since I got it as a kid, I've been ringing this bell every year around this time. And it seems that each year less and less people can hear it. So I wanted to share this moment with you this time to see if you could hear it. So I'm gonna give this a shake, and tell me what you hear. Huh? I swear it just sounds like a normal sleigh bell. What's going on? Well, that was a very nice... Hold on. I wasn't supposed to get anything yet. It's not even Christmas Eve, so it's not from Santa. Well, this isn't from Santa at all. From the mean one. Well, certainly not from Santa. It says from the mean one. Oh. That can't be good. Let's see what we get out of our bloody package from the mean one. And it is a Blu-ray copy of the mean one. It's not what I wanted at all. The Mean One, a slasher parody of How the Grinch Stole Christmas that came out around this time last year. It was making a bit of buzz on the internet following the viral success of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And that seems like the only real reason that this got made. The big difference being, Winnie the Pooh actually became public domain, meaning the original source material for Winnie the Pooh is up for grabs for anyone to do what they want with it. Pretty much. When that happened, someone out there said, you know what, let's turn this beloved children's classic into a horror movie where they try to kill people. I'll admit, I watched it. I kind of liked it, despite the filmmakers behind it having made some of my most hated cheap movies lately. They're not even at least entertaining or fun to make fun of, but something was different about the Winnie the Pooh one. It feels like they actually tried, so I'm actually kind of looking forward to these other ones they got coming up. And it seemed that the success, if you can call it that, of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey led to the Mean One. And I took a look at the filmmakers behind this, see if I'd have a similar reaction to how I felt about the Winnie the Pooh one, and well, I looked. The director, he was an editor for a Steven Seagal movie, and one of the recent ones that are pretty bad. Another thing that got some people excited was not just that it was a horror parody of the Grinch, but because of the actor portraying the Mean One, and that is David Howard Thornton, best known for his role as Art in the Terrifier series. Now, I remember not really being that fond of the first movie. I mean, there was a couple cool kills in that, nice practical effects. The sequel, though, I think was much better, even if maybe it was a little too long, but it was all held together by Thornton's performance. I think the character did a great job of portraying that silent slasher villain. He uses a lot of mime, which is apparently something that he actually studied, and it makes him a lot scarier, and it seems a lot of that carried over into the Mean One. And just one more interesting point I wanted to bring up real quick about this movie and David Howard Thornton. It looks like Terrifier 3 is going to be Christmas themed, so he's about to have 2 Christmas slashers under his belt. I don't know what he's gonna do with that, but I'm pretty excited to see it. So is some horror fans excited and just people wanting a twisted take on a holiday classic? There's a lot to unpack here. With the new treat for modern horror fans and for those wanting a twisted take on a holiday classic, this seems like it should be a pretty good movie, right? Right? Our movie opens up with what seems like a stock footage of Christmas Town. Here it is called Newville, you know, not Whoville. And it opens up at a very familiar sight, Cindy's house. Not Cindy Lou Who though, Cindy You Know Who. Yeah, really clever on that one, guys. I know you can only expect so much out of random child actors, especially in what was going to be a direct-to-video movie, but this girl is awful.
Why, Santa Claus? Why?
I don't want to pick on her too much, just like, this is the best y'all could get. This was the good take. It goes pretty much the same way, but then the movie likes to play around. It's even got its own Seuss-like narrator going on.
They loved their Christmas, those folks down in town. But what if I said, that's not how it went down?
Some of the rhymes the narrator has are a little fun, but then some of it's like, I figured that one out, and maybe I could have written one better. What ends up happening instead is Cindy's mother comes down and sees this Santa down there talking to her daughter, and so she freaks out and says, "Get out of my house," and gets into a bit of a fight with them. And you wouldn't necessarily be wrong for thinking it's like, oh, we're about to get our first big kill, right? Kinda. The fight actually ends with something breaking. I think it's like a nutcracker or whatever. And then Cindy's mom falls on it. So really her death was an accident and kind of her fault and not the mean ones. And yes, they're calling it the mean one. That's what we'll find out it's called later. It's not the Grinch. You can't do that because the difference with this, the Grinch is not public domain. So this is simply a parody, which you gotta skirt around a little more on that sort of thing.
Monster! Monster!
So after the whole thing happens, Cindy ends up calling the Santa a monster, and that's what sets off everything else. We jump to 20 years later, Cindy's grown up, it's just been her and her dad, and they decided to come back to Newville after all this. It seems that she hasn't been able to quite move on since the incident, and they thought it would be a good idea to spend Christmas here where her mom died in front of her eyes. We also get introduced to another one of our main characters, the deputy of our town. They get pulled over for, I don't even care, insert random thing that you could just randomly be pulled over for. It's not that serious.
Nose in the antlers. We don't allow those kinds of car decorations within the city limits.
And when he pulls up, he does this whole thing. He refers to her as ma'am, and I need to know, is that offensive? Like, is that reserved for specifically older women? I'd be calling children ma'am. I rarely say miss. I'm just curious because they make a pretty big deal of it in this scene, and it feels really, really forced.
Did he just ma'am me?
Oh, you do not want to ma'am her.
No.
Once they're on their way, they make it back to their old house. Here, we're introduced to something that's going to happen a few more times throughout the movie. Cindy seems to have visions as well as just nightmares about the incident and about things possibly happening now. It's some things where it looks like something's going on, something scary is about to happen, but really it's all in her head, or it was a dream and we want you to shoot up in her bed. We meet a few more characters, including the sheriff, Mayor McBean. I'm probably just going to refer to her as the Bean. There's not much that's that important that they talk about until you find out stuff later, so I'm not going to bring up every conversation they have, as I feel like they could have cut them out or just made them shorter, because it doesn't add much. When there's something important, I'll let you know. We see her talking to the police and she hands over a drawing saying this is him, and it looks like the Grinch. And then the cop says, like, you're old enough to know monsters aren't real. Come on, can you try drawing another one for me? Look, we found this green mask. Because, you know, whenever you're caught in a break-in, you're going to throw away your mask for some reason. They're telling her it's not a monster. You should know. You should know those aren't real. Give us a real guy. It's like, is she too old to not think that? I mean, I know they said 20 years later, and the actress, nothing against her, she looks like she's at least in her 30s, so is she supposed to be 10? Because the girl looks like she could even be like 8. The big takeaway right now is that everyone's aware of Cindy and they just think she's crazy as she keeps going on about a monster having killed her mother. We get a montage of Cindy and her dad decorating their house, and it feels like one of those holiday commercials we get around this time of year. It feels like they just watched a bunch of those back to back and said, alright, do that, and we're done. After our joyous montage, something goes horribly wrong. Say bye to Dad too, Cindy. Sorry. Oh, wait! Was it a dream? Oh, it wasn't. You're in a hospital, so it wasn't a dream. It did happen. I told you they were going to do this several times, and it was kind of annoying because we're not even that far from the last dream jump scare thing. It feels overused, even though it's only been done about twice now. We find out Dad was killed, and the kill was okay. I didn't say much about the mom's death. It looked like they mostly used CG on it for some reason when it could have been very practical. And the same thing with the dad's. I mean, at least it was more creative. She continues to insist that it was this strange monster and everyone's just calling her crazy. Then outside the hospital room, there's a conversation between the deputy and the mayor. It more or less breaks down to, it turns out after the whole thing of Cindy's mom, there was a series of Christmas killings and they're thinking they might be back. But the mayor says, no, shut up. There's nothing weird going on. It's just an isolated incident. And then the deputy's like, what do we do?
Our jobs.
Everything he was just saying, it's not like he wasn't doing his job. It's like, I don't know. It's one of those conversations that just feels really stupid and it was a little more drawn out than it needed to be. Dad's buried, he gets his poorly edited CG headstone, and then the deputy takes Cindy back to her house. And then there's a funny little back and forth. It's obvious they want a romance between the two. And she's like, thank you for all you've done for me. You know, walking me here, pulling me over that one time, calling me ma'am, giving me quite possibly the most boring soup you could give anybody.
Homemade matzo ball soup.
It's really goofy and stupid to me. They did not write this part well at all. I think at this point they're just making fun of Christmas romance movies. We then for some reason immediately after this, even though I feel like this could have been put somewhere else, we cut to conversation between the sheriff and the mayor. It's just more of the same thing really, but it seems like they're both in on something that no one else is. Cindy takes her thermos of soup and goes up into the mountains, looking like she's trying to just clear her head and just try to forget about everything that happened. Or so we think. She has a camera up with her. She's taking pictures of birds, looking for the loopaloo flower, I guess. I guess that's a thing happening. And then we see something interesting. It appears to be the monster. And she gets quite possibly the worst photo of it ever. It's worse than, like, you know those Bigfoot ones where it's like, he's doing this thing, you know, like Buddy. And it's straight up just a blur, not even a identifiable blur. You just can't tell what it is. And I bring this up because she's gonna do something really funny with this picture pretty much immediately after this scene. After snapping this picture, she falls into a cave. Conveniently, I might add. I don't know how she just falls in. It's pretty freaky down there, so she pretty much immediately tries to find her way out. Upon doing so, she sees another couple hiking up there at the same time as her, and they are getting attacked by the monster. And you'd think this would be our first really cool killing scene? No. It looks like something the editor of a Steven Seagal movie will put together. After that all goes down, the man had already been hauled away in a helicopter, and the woman is sitting in the back of an ambulance. Cindy goes there and is trying to explain what she saw, and it's like, hey, it was the monster. And she's trying to get the woman to say something, but then the lady's just like, huh? What? And then she freaks out, it's like, is he okay? And then pretty much, it's a good chance he's dead. And so we have to move on from this, not without having to remind Cindy that she's crazy and needs to stop talking about this monster. But a lot of this is coming more from the sheriff than the deputy, as I think the deputy is starting to believe a little bit, or thinks there is something strange going on that the sheriff might not want him to know. No one in this is a particularly good actor, and I looked it up, the lead at the least, she's more of a stunt woman. She's done a few things, but it kind of shows because she's not much of an actress. But I can say that about the entire cast. No one's particularly good or interesting. Remember that thing I was saying about that picture she got? She decides to print that and says, have you seen this? And post it all over town. And it's just the worst thing ever. It's like, have you seen this blur? You can't even make out any features on it. What made you think this is gonna help your case at all? We're nearly half an hour in and we're about to get to what's probably my favorite scene, which kind of sucks because this is a third of the way into the movie. We got a van of Santas and I guess elves and Miss Clauses, you know, people that'll be like at malls and stuff, and they're on their way heading through this town, I guess, get to their next stop, and they're taking a break. It looks like the middle of the day, and it seems like they're all already drunk or something, and the driver's just sick of it. They go into this restaurant with the lone waitress, and the best she can offer is to bring them out tea. Got this one guy that's being really grapey.
I think I'll take an iced tea.
And the next scene with him is pretty good. Like, just check out this shot right here. After throwing one back, the waitress turns around only to see a bloody trail leading into the freezer. And this is what really kicks off the scene. And as much as I adore this scene, it's also just truly awful. Again, I can understand why not everything was going to be practical, but it could have been a few more, you know, just blood splatters and not weird CG that's painfully obvious. And the sound mix isn't too good on this either. Honestly, the best part about this is the mean one. Thornton does a great job with what he does. It seems that they just wanted him to more or less do what he did for Terrifier, but not quite as mime-like. He's a lot like a cartoon character in this with the way he emotes and moves around. It's certainly creative, but it doesn't exactly look all that great. But again, this is probably the best killing scene, as well as just scene in the whole movie. Well, you know what, maybe the finale might be better. I'll tell you about that though when we get to it. The waitress ends up being the only one to not get killed, which has me wondering why. Was the mean one just upset that these guys were all dressed like Santa and stuff and they were getting drunk and just overall being degenerates, you know? Maybe he just doesn't like people sullying the name of Christmas. He wants it to himself. I don't get it. And the other difference here that's going to be important later is like he just went into town and did this and dipped. I don't get what he's doing. Cindy sees this on the news and she starts freaking out, and then she hears something in her house. And it's this old guy we've been seeing. His name's Doc. Dr. Seuss. Turns out he's probably the only person in town that believes Cindy. He's seen the monster as it took his wife years ago. They go to a bar, he tells the whole story, and this is where we're officially told that he's called the mean one, mostly because that's what Doc calls him. They got a drawing of him. Like seriously, look at this picture. The face That is not what the mean one looks like in this. That is Jim Carrey's Grinch with something else drawn around it. Like, I'm pretty sure there's actually a poster or a promo picture for that movie that looks exactly like this. Cindy ends up trying to take all this to the police yet again. It's like, hey, the monster's on the loose. It's like, shut up, there's not a monster. Let us do our damn jobs. The deputy, however, decides to take things into his own hands and goes up to the mountain himself. He finds the cave and lowers himself down and takes a look around. It looks like there's certainly something strange going on here, as it seems there's someone living in the cave. There's a bunch of garbage laying around, a lot of Christmas stuff, and he steps on the one thing in there that makes noise. As he's trying to turn off, he starts hearing someone's down there with him. And amazingly, he's able to hide under a sheet. And the same toy also pisses off the main one as he's coming through, moving a body. Which, does he always take the bodies? So far it doesn't seem like it. The deputy is able to escape, having found a bunch of wallets to help his case. It's a fairly tense scene, definitely better than some of the stuff we've been getting. Once he's out, he runs into Doc, who seems to be up there for a similar reason. Except, Doc is carrying an entire armory with him.
Hey, you got permits for these?
We get another scene between Cindy and the deputy. They're pushing the romance just a little more, and then we cut to what looked like it could have been an almost good scene. We see Cindy step into the shower and the deputy joins her, so you think in a moment it's either going to turn into sex or we're going to get some psycho stuff going on here. I was really hoping for psycho to happen, but it just turns out this was another dream. Maybe she didn't even shower with the guy. It's then the next day and Cindy begins her mean one fight training. She sets up this, I'm not even gonna call it a heavy bag. It looks like she straight up hung up a plush and decided to beat it up. So she's training how to fight him, how to shoot, and then making traps and other weapons. Looks like she's gonna Home Alone this dude. Doc is out drinking yet again, and when he's trying to leave, he gets stopped by the sheriff who locks him up. Which takes out a pretty important part of this whole take down the mean one equation. Now about 20 minutes since the last one, we get another random slasher scene. This one takes place in a diner that's closing, rather than another place that was opening. It's one guy left cleaning up, about to close up the joint, and then the delivery guy comes by dropping off the ingredients for the next day. He goes to check it out only to see he got a box of Christmas decorations, so he calls up the guy saying, hey, you need to come get this, bring me my stuff, and take this to whoever was supposed to get it.
I ordered bell peppers, not jingle bells.
During this, the mean one sneaks in. It ends up with the guy getting chopped up and placed in the package. This all happens just in time for the delivery guy to come back and take this package full of body parts to whoever's supposed to get Christmas decorations. This is definitely the better scene, as they do a lot of practical stuff in this one over CG. It looks a little cheap, but again, it looks better than having a random red splatter pop up on your screen. After skipping several scenes of conversations between people that I said maybe talked a little too much, we see the deputy go to Cindy to show him all the evidence and things he's discovered since taking the case on his own.
Maybe it's because his head isn't screwed on quite right. Maybe it's because his shoes are too tight. Maybe his heart is 2 sizes too small.
It turns out there's a lot of missing people that just so happen to go missing up in the mountain, looking for the blue flower. And we see a bunch of pictures of poorly photoshopped mean ones in the back of each of them. They're showing all these photos that's supposed to be like the last sightings of all these people, and they just poorly photoshopped the mean one behind a random tree or something in all of them. It looks like those Slender Man pictures that came out all that time ago. But it's just, you know, those random black and white photos, and there's just Slender Man all the way off in the distance. And they just do this on a bunch of them. And it's just funny because he's also at a higher resolution than the background he's in. And the craziest part isn't just that the monster was here being the reason all these people went missing up in those mountains. It's the website that drew the people here to find the Loopaloo flower. Turns out it is owned by the Bean, seemingly luring people here to sacrifice them to the mean one, I guess to keep him out of the town. And why does this feel so familiar? Wait a minute, freaking Willy's Wonderland. I didn't even mean to connect any of my reviews like that. I just wanted to do something Christmassy that was still a little horror. I did not realize this plot point was coming back. After this revelation, the deputy takes a look at what Cindy's been up to, and he's a little freaked out by what she's doing. He's not really on board with her whole revenge plan, as he's afraid it's just gonna mess her up more than she thinks it's going to. But I mean, when you're faced with a monster, I don't think it's the same as like trying to confront a serial killer or something. I feel like that's a little different. Now we're checking out what the Bean's up to, and she's out driving when her car suddenly stops. This one uses CG for the end shot, but I 100% understand why. I think it was justified this time around. It looks pretty alright. I'm down with this scene. Now it's for the big confrontation between the deputy and the sheriff. He comes up and says, hey, I know what's going on, but I want to know why. And this is all the while Doc is still in the cell trying to get out, saying, hey, there's stuff going on, I need to be out there. We get a flashback of what the sheriff saw when he had first gone up there all those years ago, and what led to him making the side, which is kind of messed up, really. Like, he was doing his job and then it led to him just making things worse, arguably.
Oh my...
This eventually leads into everyone going up to the mountain. And now that Doc is out, he's on his way to tell Cindy what's gonna happen. On his way to go talk to Cindy, he gets caught in one of her traps. Luckily, it's not one of the ones that can really kill you, it's just the one that gets you stuck in a tree. She gets a little fangirl and it's like, oh, what did the deputy say about me? It's like, oh, something's happening? Oh, maybe I should go to the mountain and not fangirl for a moment.
Wait! A little help!
Sorry.
Before they can make it, we see what the two cops are up to inside the cave. They make it in only to find that the mean one was prepared. He had laid out some traps for him. The deputy gets caught in a bear trap, so the sheriff decides to go on and fight him himself. It's a pretty interesting sequence where it's only lit by muzzle flashes. I think it's a cool idea. It looks alright here, so I'll let it pass. But in this, we lose the sheriff.
We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year!
Luckily, Cindy and Doc are able to make it on time to save the deputy and get him out of the trap. Next step, lure the mean one to Cindy's house so she can take him on 1v1. It works, the mean one gets there, ends up fighting Cindy. Doc is outside in kind of a sniper's perch.
The hunter proclaimed,
Merry Christmas, you green bitch!
And the funniest part about this fight, not only is everything decorated, she like skinned her guns. She put candy cane wrap on all of them. It's like, did you paint these? There's no way you bought these like that. You went out of your way to decorate these for this moment. You even wrapped up like your baseball bat and everything. You filled up ornaments with kerosene and gas. It's just funny. I wish there was a little more of this, so I'm glad the scene's as long as it is. I just think it could have been done better. It seems they were more creative with the props than the execution, if that makes sense. There is a point he almost gets Doc, so Cindy has to go out and save him, but he says, no, you gotta do your thing, I'll be fine. Which he is. She continues to fight outside, ends up back in the house. It's going everywhere. So he's getting beat up, shot, you know, everything. He even gets blown up and lit on fire. It's a pretty fun sequence that goes on for a decent amount of time.
Yahoo! Motherfucker!
It all ends with one trap that was set up in the tree. The mean one's down on the ground and Cindy gets on top ready to deliver the final blow. But then she sees something that she didn't expect. So back at the beginning, when Cindy went to go say hi to Santa, she had this little necklace thing that she put on him and says, I love you, Santa. And it turns out the mean one kept it all these years. He still had it on where she had left it. So it has me wondering, what led him to do the whole killing spree? Was it the mom coming down, accidentally dying in the scuffle, and Cindy calling him a monster? Like, is that really all that did it to make him a killer? Cindy starts to look back at him and even says, I forgive you. Which is pretty hard to say to a guy that's purposely killed multiple people after just one accidentally died. Unless he was already killing before, in which case it seemed like he was. I don't know. They make use of the whole, his heart was too small and... With the monster dead, it looks like everything is over. But it looks like this whole hype around the monster spread online.
Mean One Mania is sweeping the nation after this image went viral from the small town of Newville.
It seems like what they ended up doing was they kept the whole hiking thing going, but instead now it's like, can you find the mean one? And there's just billboards everywhere, there's people posting about it online all over the place. It's a weird inclusion, but I guess it's just also a bit of a mockery of the whole thing with what happened with the idea of this movie. And I guess it's what they were hoping for. They were hoping to say, hey, let's make ourselves viral. Let's say something about that in the movie. Looks like everyone that made it outdoor deal's fine and happy. Cindy's with the deputy, and the town is thriving.
the beast had been slain and some wrongs became right. Because Christmas returned, almost overnight.
There's even a little post-credits scene of someone opening their package of Christmas decorations. And it turns out this is that package that the delivery guy delivered by mistake to the wrong guy, and the wrong guy is in there. I wanted so badly to like this when I got it. When I heard it was coming, I was like, I'm not totally sure if I'm gonna watch it. Then I finally went around, watched Winnie the Pooh, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I am up for this type of movie. Let's check out the mean one. The Grinch has always been one of my favorites. I can't say I remember that old cartoon very well, but it's clearly a classic. And then we got the modern classic, the live-action Grinch movie with Jim Carrey. That's gotta be one of my absolute favorites of all time. Even though, admittedly, I can recall when I was little, he kind of scared me a little. He's a little freaky looking. So this kind of brought that back for me. And then you also got the Illumination one, which I think that one's pretty cute. It's a fun movie. I really like it. I don't know why people hated on it. So you got all these nice Grinch cartoons, and then you got the slasher thing for the weirdos out there like me. And probably you. It's interesting. I just feel like they could have delivered more. We should have just had more of the mean one being the mean one. Because the thing with the Grinch, it always followed the Grinch. It didn't really follow the Who's that much. Even when it did, the focus was always the Grinch himself and how he felt about the Who's, rather than the other way around. Which even with this different approach, it's different for the Grinch, not different for a slasher film. This could have been a lot more interesting if they took the Grinch approach on this and followed the killer around. Because also, who cares about these people? They're not interesting, they're just there to carry the story, obviously. We needed people here doing this and that. I'm not saying they were poorly written or anything, it's just they weren't as interesting. And that's why overall I ended up giving the movie a 5 out of 10. I really wanted to like it more, I could have hated it more, but it delivered enough of stuff that I did like that I was able to give it a slightly higher rating than I thought I was going to. There's definitely a crowd for this, and the people that are watching this, you're probably a part of it. Maybe you were just a little curious, and I'll just let you take my words and decide if you want to watch it yourself. I think it's a little too long. Another thing I liked about Winnie the Pooh more, that one went 80 minutes, pretty good pace for what it was doing. This one, it feels like it drags at points, and it goes on about 90 minutes. There's even a couple deleted scenes that were better than some of the things that were in it. Like, it was just more killings. It's like, you couldn't leave that stuff in. So overall, I could say I'm disappointed, but I more or less got what I expected. If you enjoyed what you saw, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and How did you get in here? You gave me this. And I bet you're the reason this doesn't even ring right anymore. We're throwing down for real. So this how it's gonna be? I got the spirit, man. So we're cool now, right? Right? Okay. So what now? Any big plans now that you're not trying to kill me? Like the drink at least? Yeah. Oh. From Max. Well, thank you, Mr. Grinch. Guess you're not that bad after all. If you enjoyed what you saw, leave a like, subscribe, and share the video. I'm Shyboy616. Merry Christmas, and be sure to come back real soon to find out what the Grinch and Max got me for Christmas. See you next time.